Maria Bachkareva, the most famous woman soldier during World War I.
Okay, go ahead.
This is interesting. This Maria Bachkareva was probably the most famous woman soldier during World War I, and she fought mainly in Russia. She was from Russia, but what's unusual about this case item is the New York Times was started in 1851, and somehow she lived, she died in 1920 at the age of 30. So when the Times was started in 1851, she was living at that time, and then she died at the age of 30 in 1920, and somehow she was completely left out of the obituaries, and she was a big hero like we're going to talk about, and they left her. They said they left several people out of the obituaries somehow, and she was one of them, because the New York Times was in business since 1851 when they were founded, and they overlooked many remarkable people. And now they're going back to talk about this lady, Maria Bachkareva, who led a Russian battalion during World War I. Wow. She was a soldier, she was a fighter, and she was famous. Everybody in the world at the time had heard about her. She became one of Russia's first female army officers, and she commanded an all-woman unit into battle on the Eastern Front. She died in 1920. She was 30 years old. And wow. Her life, as far as getting into the news and what happened, she was married at 15 in Russia, where she lived, and that marriage didn't work, and then mainly alcoholism got him, the same thing that got her father, alcoholism, and then she went into another relationship, and I think it was the same thing about drinking, and Germany now declared war on Russia in August 1914. Most of this is going back, although rare female soldiers weren't heard of in World War I, but she was, and she had a group that she followed her, and at one time she was in a battle, and I think she carried out 50 people that were shot. She helped carry them all out, and then she got shot herself as she was leaving the battle. But at one time she was sent on a trip to the United States, and in the United States she met the president she met, and then one of them gave her $500 to get back on, and she met both presidents, and I mean, she was just a hero, a star. Now, most people over there at the time didn't like women in the service, but she didn't care. She wanted to fight, and she rounded up some other women that wanted to fight, and that's why she was famous, and she was the founder of Women's Battalion of Death, it was called. and she was a pretty good sized woman, a big woman. And somebody said when they saw her walking down the street, they'd have to keep looking 3 times because she looked so big and strong that she had to be a man. That's what a couple of people said. But as she progressed, and the people that were against her were the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks actually had her shot and killed at the end when she was 30 years old. In fact, they put her in prison, and she was there for about 4 months, where they interrogated her and talked to her and questioned her, and then she was shot by the Cheka on May 16th, 1920. And then she had a pardon after death by Lenin, the big leader in Russia, Lenin. And the Cheka agents that killed her, I never heard of Cheka, but they were around. And the agents that ordered her execution were themselves executed by Lenin for not following orders, because they had orders not to bother her, and they killed her. So I don't know, that's a story that goes way back, and there are some books written on her now, but somehow, and the reason this came up is the woman was probably the best fighter in World War I for a woman that we ever had. And somehow the New York Times was in business then. They went in business in 1851, and when she was killed at the age of 30 in 1920, they missed it. The New York Times missed it. And she was killed by a firing squad in 1920. Thank you. That one's different.